The Steve Jones Show podcast is loading now. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Purdy Insurance and MECTEC. In-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance and MECTEC. Now, here's Steve Jones.
Hour is being brought to you by our good friends at MECTEC Incorporated and Diversified Construction. MECTEC is a professional engineering and land surveying company. They've been providing civil engineering and survey services since 1971. I may have to call them, by the way. Diversified Construction offers a variety of construction services varying from accessible home modifications to commercial and light industrial construction. Together, the great people at MECTEC and Diversified are proud to be the consumer choice in the Susquehanna Valley and beyond. I want to get stuff out of my garage. And so I want to put a 10 by 14 shed in my backyard. Storage shed. And I'm talking like nice windows, the whole thing, right? Soffit fascia. And, of course, naturally, township gives you like, oh, I don't know, you got to do this. Oh, for God's sake, stop with the stupid rules. It's going to increase the property value. Don't let that worry you. And they're like, but you need to find the pins on your property because that is before. I already have a fence on my property. I'm like, what? Well, of course, I try to go out and find the pins and with a metal detector. Because I own a metal detector, only because for other things in the past I needed it. So I've had it for years. So I go out and look, I've owned this house for more than 28 years now. Yeah? Well, in 28 years, things grow, grass, everything. So I'm getting a couple of blips here and there, but I'm not going to go down and dig down for the pins. Right? Like, oh, brother. So I may have to call a surveying company to come in and survey the property so we know where the pins are to satisfy the code. Like, code. Glorified bureaucratic BS. But that's another story. But it does fit in with MECTEC. They'll probably be the ones I call. All right. So I had a chance to be a part of something last night that was really cool. Matt Campbell had said to me on Tuesday, hey, by the way, he says, what do you have going on Thursday night? I said, no. They said, nothing. I said, I'm kind of home free on Thursday. I said, or excuse me, it was Wednesday night. It was on Monday he came up to me and he said this to me. It's on Monday. And he said, what are you doing Wednesday night? And I said, oh. I said, nothing. I said, the Spikes 6-game run at the end, I said, didn't start till Thursday at home. I said, so I don't have anything on Wednesday night. He says, stop by the team meeting on Wednesday night. He says, it's our legacy segment. And Sue Paterno's going to talk to the team. I said, oh, geez, all right. So, last night, show's over yesterday. I turned in another freebie for the company. And you think I'm joking? And so, I go out and I think I got like 8 holes of golf in. All right, did fine. I was 2 over. Good. Right? And then I made sure right about 5 o'clock, boom, I went over. And I was upstairs in Greg Kincaid's office. Greg he's one of the best sports information guys in the country, without question. And Sue comes in. It is the first time since everything happened that Sue has been in the building. Goes upstairs, Now, Joe's office, the way it was, is not there any longer. It's all a big open area. The entire width of the building, it's an open area. And with trophy cases on one side all the way down, it's an area where they can bring in donors and so forth and use it as an entertainment area and so forth. Okay. Well, she goes down to Matt's office, which when you're in that open area, it's the last office on the left. And it's the first time she's been in there since everything happened. They then bring her downstairs to the meeting room. Now, I have one funny moment because I'm sure that you, I think many of you, about this, some of you know that Joe made sure one of his rules, no hats in the building. No hats in the building. Hats outside, fine. Hats in the building, no. So I'm standing in the back of the meeting room in the corner, and I'm leaning up against the wall in the corner of the meeting room. And Dan Connor comes in. And Dan's got his, he was outside doing something, and he walked in, he still had his hat on. And I said to him, I said, oh, great. I said the first, and I'm kidding him because I can kid around with these guys. I said, great. I said, the first ever Penn State recruit to ever be an early entry in January walks in and he still has his hat on with Sue Paterno's hair. And he goes, oh, geez. He rips his hat off. I said, Danny, I'm kidding. He goes, no. He says, no, I can't wear it. Then Coach Malloy came in. Now, Coach Malloy doesn't know. You know, he's new to Penn State. He walked in right away, ripped his hat off, put it on the floor. But I had Dan and I had a good laugh about it, so because he knew I was kidding around. But he was like, no, he says, you're right. I can't do that. Sue gets up after Matt introduces her. And the first thing he did was he had everybody talk about the importance of legacy. And he had 4 or 5 guys point out certain things that were important about legacy. He introduces Sue, and to do an introduction on her would take a while if you really wanted the audience to know the true impact of somebody. You know, with her, you'd bring up what she's done with Special Olympics, the Paternal Scholars Program, the Paternal Library, the Suzanne Poland Paternal Catholic Center. I mean, the money raised for Pascarilla. I mean, they were involved in all of this. Let alone the campaign for Penn State. Right? Let alone the campaign for Penn State. I mean, this is what these people did for decades. The number of people that they entertained in their home, where she did, she didn't cater it. She did all the cooking for it. She did all the cooking for it. They never catered it. And let's face it, it's the thousands of people over the decades that they entertain in their home on behalf of football, on behalf of athletics, on behalf of the university, over and over again. These people kept giving back and giving back. So the first thing she does when she gets up there, I don't know if anybody saw the picture of it, but at Special Olympics, Sue had just had knee replacement surgery. This is back in April. So this would be the run to the 50, the fundraiser. And she's kind of, not that far removed from the surgery. So, so like walking, she's able to do it. But, and Alexander Nottom, the big defensive tackle, sees that, like, she's getting there, but he comes over and offers his arm to her and escorts her to the 50-yard line, which made it so much easier for her to do at that time back in April. Now to be honest with you, it was still sore in June when I saw her, and it was still sore at the end of July when I saw her. But yesterday, you could tell she was, like she says, it's a lot better. So that's good news. Okay? And so the first thing she did was, in front of the team, thank him for doing that. Right? How special it was for him to do it. Then she started talking about their time here at Penn State. She talked about, because the number of players and others that she has tutored over the years, free of charge. You can't put a price on what she did and the impact educationally that she had. She talked about the impact of education. She talked about being on time for everything. She talked about being in the first two rows of a classroom and how important that happens to be. She talked about how Joe would, when it came to players, how important it was for him to see them succeed on and off the field and try to have that kind of impact on them. And she talked about when Joe was offered the Patriots job. And she said at that time Joe was making about $30,000 a year. And the Patriots offered, Billy Sullivan was the lead owner at the time, $1.3 million. And Joe was going to bring Jim Tarman with him as his general manager. And they pretty much, after really struggling about this, you know what? Hey, I think I'm going to take it. And she talked about one of the kids saying, I don't want to leave my friends. And she didn't say which one it was, but said it was 6 at the time. 6 at the time. I wonder if that would have been David. I'm trying to think. But didn't want to leave their friends. Like, all right. And after wrestling with it that night, because he decided to do it, and there was going to be a plane that would take Joe to New York, and then there would be a signing, and then go from there. He wakes up the next day and says to her, you know what? I don't think so. And he called the airline, the charter service first, and said, you know what? Forget it. Then he called Billy Sullivan next and said, I'm going to back out. I'm not going to do it. Well, he didn't back out. He hadn't said he was going to. He didn't say yes or no. He declined it because he had not told Billy Sullivan yes yet. So he declined it. And he's making $30,000 a year. Now, when this was over with, Jay said, and this is the other part I did know as well. Jay said, geez, you left the part out about where he also would get 5 to 8% ownership of the club. Right? And everybody's like, whoa. And I looked over and I said, I'm not going to do this to you, Sue, but I said, if you want, I can get you the Forbes valuation of how much the Patriots are worth today and how much that 5 to 8% would be. And everybody got a good laugh out of that. But she said, but he said, I can't have an impact on the professional ranks like I have in college. on young people and what I can do to develop them not only as players but to help them as people. So I can't have that kind of impact. And so she talked about that. Now, Guido D'Elia was there last night as well. You know, Guido's the one that got the whiteout going at Penn State. Oh, you know, I mean, he's the genius behind all that. As I said to Gene Wojciechowski on the ESPN Game Day piece, I said Guido is the genius behind the whiteout at Beaver Stadium. That was my exact quote on Game Day about that. And Guido was there last night. And Guido says, you have to tell them about about painting the lion. So she told the story, and the story's been out there. I mean, I think it's been in books and things like that. But her and Sandra Welsh, George Welsh's wife, right, got this washable, okay, water-based orange paint because she said the stadium was dead, it wasn't alive. Everybody's, everybody sit down, whatever, okay. And she told me she told me later one of the people would tell me to sit down. I go, oh, her. All I said was, oh, her. She says she's because these are people that I would know about that. Matt and the others would not know. They go, oh, yeah, okay, you're right. She would do that. So they were at some party, and I guess the way she tells it, and she said she left the cake at the house. And she was supposed to bring a cake. It was a birthday cake. And she'd left the cake at the house. And they went over, and Nancy Radakovich, I guess, was driving the car. She's like, and they had 2 cans of it, and Sandra and Sue put the paint on the line. The week of the Syracuse game. Oh. Then they go through the process of disposing of the evidence. She's explaining this last night to the team, of disposing of the evidence. And Joe notices everything. And she did explain that Joe noticed everything because I guess on her coat there were a couple little spots of orange paint. He goes, what's that? So then she finds out that 3 Syracuse students were arrested for painting the line. She's like, huh, really? Really? Well, it turned out they had, right? They actually put oil-based paint on it. So I was like, oh. But it riled up the crowd. And it changed the crowd in the stadium. But the way she told, everybody was laughing. When it was done last night, 50 to 60 of the players gathered around her in a semicircle at the bottom of the well in the team meeting room. And Guido looked at me and he says, oh, my God, he says, I wish I had my camera. He says, that picture is worth 1 billion words. And Guido was almost in tears and choked up when he said it to me. And I say, well, it tells you about her and it tells you about them. And he says, yep. Sue does not think of herself in any way, shape, or form except somebody who tries the best that she can in life. In reality, she's royalty. She would look at me and go, don't you, Steve, don't say. But she is. And to see her treated that way last night by 18 to 23-year-olds who have only heard the name but didn't know her. And remember, all these athletes came out for Special Olympics in June. They formed that tunnel, and these athletes came out for the run into Beaver Stadium in April. And she thanked them for both of those, by the way. last night in this talk. And to see that happen, the talk was outstanding. The talk was powerful because she gave some powerful examples of how they live their lives here in State College and how important it was to make an impact. And to see 50 to 60, 18 to 23-year-olds gathered around her at the end to thank her for being there was really one of those moments where there's a long list of privileges I have with this job. I mean, just sitting at the 50-yard line describing plays to all of you is a privilege. Working with Jack Ham is a privilege. Another one of those privileges last night was being invited to sit there and witness this last night. It was something I'll never forget. There are certain things in life that are forgettable. We'll have our high school roundtable with the suit coming up next. This half hour brought to you by MECTech Incorporated and Diversified Construction on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance and MECTech. Now, here's Steve Jones.
This half hour brought to you by MECTech Incorporated and Diversified Construction. MECTech, a professional engineering and land surveying company that have been providing civil engineering and survey services since 1971. Diversified Construction offers a variety of construction services varying from accessible home modifications to commercial and light industrial construction. Together, MECTech and Diversified are proud to be the consumer choice in the Susquehanna Valley and beyond. And this half hour also brought to you by Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV. We have multiple insurance needs. You need somebody that's going to take care of all of it. Make sure you're fully insured. Make sure that your policy is updated. Make sure you're aware of any changes along the way. Make sure to do everything they can to save you money, because customer service means everything to them at Purdy Insurance. Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Is the suit now available for his high school preview, or?
Yes. Yeah, I just had to hit the right button.
Oh, jeez. And so it begins.
Well, this is what happens when you take some time away.
My day has been ruined. All right, so I want to start with the end of last season. They built some momentum, Shikellamy did, at the end of last season. Has the staff felt that there's been a carryover of guys embracing that and then getting better in the offseason and this preseason to start out 2026?
I think the answer to that is in what Thomas Pollock, the standout wide receiver and the all-state wide receiver, said earlier this year. You know, he doesn't have any individual goals this year. It's team goals. It's team, it's the bigger picture. And that says a lot for a guy that's, less than 350 yards away, receiving yards away from 3,000 in a career, which is a huge pedestal. And I think that really answers that question. Everybody on this team is looking at the big picture of things. And I think that happened last year when they went from optimistic excitement leading into the year to now It's more of like, here's what we expect that we're going to do.
Who gets him the ball?
Well, that's the great question. I mean, and that has been the question all summer.
That is why I asked it.
Yeah, and you're that's why you're the oracle. That's been the big question all summer. I thought last year the backup was Brody Kurtz, and Brady Kurtz was the backup for Brody Raybuck. And I thought Brady did a really nice job of running the option. As a matter of fact, not that this doesn't happen anyway, but he faked me out many times when he was running down the sideline. And I'm listening to the crowd cheering, and I'm like, oh, there's the ball. He hides the ball so well off of his hip for a freshman quarterback that, the linebackers, like me, had no idea where he was. So they had the ball. Then you bring in a guy like Bobby Felmy, who was the slot receiver a year ago, had some injury problems, but just has, and he's been a quarterback most of his career, and just has that ability to be elusive and to fire the ball downfield and find his target. And I think they had a real good quarterback battle, but it looks like Felmy will be the starter tomorrow night.
Okay. Any concerns that they have, short-term, long-term, that if it falls into place, it really makes the team better?
I think that goes along with being able to utilize the running backs that they had last year. They had a lot of injuries at running back. It was, a lot of starters were revolving door. The running back position kind of was a revolving door of starters. And I think if they can get some solidified running back situation, and they have a lot of guys with experience, they have a lot of guys that can run the ball, I think that'll be a big, important step.
Okay, schedule-wise, all right, let's get to tomorrow night's game. That has to be a really difficult game for you to get ready for, because other than getting a scrimmage report, how tough is that for you?
Well, it's really difficult because Mifflinburg has so many guys that are new. I shouldn't say new. They're new to the starting rotation. They're guys that have seen playing time, but they lost, the quarterback, the running back. They lost their downfield threats. So that's the toughest part of this. You get a pretty good idea where Shikellamy is because most of those guys are back with a handful of guys that graduated. But Mifflinburg, Cody Botts has done a great job there. They had an outstanding season last year, a historic season for Mifflinburg last year. I thought that they were probably one of the quickest quick strike offenses in the area, if not in the region. But it's a really tough read, and I talked with actually Coach Hoover about that last night. I said, this has to be one of the toughest games to set up for when you see a team that has graduated so many players. How do you get ready for that? Do you look at JV film? And they didn't play them last year in JV. So, It's not like you have a JV film to look at. You'd have to get lucky enough to find somebody who has one. And I think, and he had that concern too. He's like, we have some tendency ideas. We saw what they did in the scrimmage, but how much of that is going to come out Friday night? Who knows?
Yeah, no. To me, the opener in college football is the biggest mystery of all.
Absolutely.
Okay, the next big mystery is high school football because the difference is there's at least one scrimmage.
Well, and you have film from that scrimmage. It's like you've sent coaches to shoot that scrimmage and be able to. How old do we sound by talking about film, Steve?
I know, yeah, right. Video.
They have Huddle that they can look at. All right, but they have video on that scrimmage where in college you don't. You don't have it. You've got to look at last year and kind of paste in the guys that you think will be filling in for those that have graduated.
Right. That's the difficult part. You probably don't have any handle really on Selinsgrove because, again, this is a week. Dave Ritchie's traveling back, and then we'll settle in on the Selinsgrove part next week when we get to them. But any basics like thumbnails on them as they get ready for their opener?
Well, last year they had a schedule that was just brutal. I mean, they'd Shamokin, Hollidaysburg, Berwick, Twin Valley, and many of those reached District 4, District 5 playoffs, and they have Southern Columbia they added this year. And it was funny because earlier in the season, Coach Wenrick said and joked about it. He said, "Never thought I'd see the day that when you add Southern Columbia, your schedule got easier."
Right.
But that's kind of the schedule that they had last year, and they had about 30, 40 kids on a regular basis on the sidelines, and that's unusual for Selinsgrove. And I know he's got more out this year, and that's going to be the big change for Selinsgrove. They're going to have a little bit more depth than they did last year. Rocco Amato's coming back at quarterback. I think this is his third season at quarterback, so I'm interested to see how he has grown over the summer. And, that's another thing that I talked to Coach Hoover about yesterday. I said, how much can you look at the way a quarterback or a running back works in a 7-on-7, because you have no line in front of you. There's no pressure. So every quarterback has a chance to sit back and get comfortable. You don't see them when they're trying to get on the run or trying to set up in the pocket or anything like that. You don't have a running back that's trying to find a hole. So that's what I think is going to be interesting here early in the season, especially with Selinsgrove, to see how Rocco's developed over the summer and to see where his comfort zone is as far as his receivers are.
Yeah. This has now been, I don't know how many years now, where the opening weekend has been this weekend in August, as opposed to being Labor Day weekend. And that means, of course, they do this for the playoffs so they can get the season done in the 10 weeks and then go from there. How have the fans adapted to the schedule over the years? Has the attendance been good for it early in the season? Has it grown when it finally feels more natural, like a fall? How's it been?
Well, last year I think was almost a full week earlier, so that was really, really tough to get used to.
Again, this year, remember Labor Day, September 7th this year,
right? And that's what backed things up a little bit on the calendar part of things.
Right.
I think the bigger aspect to that, Steve, is since going to this new format, they went from 2 scrimmages to 1.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's been the real big change. It's kind of like the NFL going from that 4 preseason game to 3. When that 4th preseason game used to be, guys that were battling for positions. In high school, that 2nd preseason game was to solidify your starters. Now you've got one scrimmage to look at guys that are maybe on the bubble of being a starter and solidifying your starters. So I think the bigger thing is for the coaches trying to get ready. Fan wise, you could start this in August, and I think some fan bases would be excited about it. Shikellami's been talking about this season since the week after they lost at Shamokin, and I'm not exaggerating about that.
Yeah.
There has been discussion about, wow, next year this is going to be a really good team, or next year this is what we're looking for. And that's why I said early on, they went from optimistic excitement last year to now expectation. And I think that also has Coach Hoover a little bit nervous, too, in his 2nd full year. It's like he's still building. He's still building this.
Yeah. So one thing that has been different, and it's happened in college football as well, where it's really magnified in college football, where some rivalries at the moment aren't being played, and others have been moved to the beginning of the season. Apple Cup, Washington State near the beginning of the season. Oregon State near the beginning of the season. Even USC and Notre Dame, when they come back, is going to be early in the season. It's not going to go back to the last game. And that's not happening when they played in California. Rivalries have changed, obviously, in high school football, including when Shikellamy plays Selinsgrove. It's sometime in October. It's not the last game. Is that going to be a permanent thing from now on? Is this just something that's just the way the schedule falls and tradition be darned?
I don't know if this part of District 4 had the tradition of those games in the last maybe 10 years, to be honest, Steve. They started changing that up. I mean, there was a time where Shikellamy-Selinsgrove was like Game 3, Game 4.
Right.
And, you know, I remember years where the Braves started off with Montoursville, Danville, and Selinsgrove. We called it the Big Three. And if you could if you could get 2-1 out of that, you considered it a success. Then they moved it back a little bit, moved that Selinsgrove-Shikellamy game back a bit. I think that was really a positive. You know, one of the things that I always think about is when you go to the east a little bit. Right. You go to the east a little bit, like Danville-Bloomsburg is an earlier game. That used to be a game that was late on the schedule. You know, I don't know that the timing and the traditional timing really kind of makes a difference anymore. They bounced it around so many times in the last 10 years or so. I don't think like if it was a Thanksgiving Day game, that's a different animal.
You can't do that, though.
Right. But that's a whole different setup now.
Yeah, right. I mean, you can't do it anymore. The playoffs are happening right
Correct.
now.
Correct.
I mean, when I was in high school, there were 2 high schools in my town. The 2 schools would play each other on Thanksgiving Day, and they'd get 15 to 20,000 people.
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
At 10 a.m. to see the game. And then, you know, the game's over, everybody goes home, and they have turkey and all the fixings and watch the NFL, the Lions game, the Cowboys game, whatever it happened to be, when it was over with. But that's a bygone era.
I think East Stroudsburg used to be a Thanksgiving Day game in high school, too, if I remember right.
Phillipsburg,
there's a
New
big
Jersey
one.
against Easton.
Yeah,
right?
That's a big one right there.
Yeah. So the IndyCar season ended with the 500.
It did not.
But they did have that thing in the streets of Washington, the Freedom 250, which is the highest rated IndyCar race outside the Indy 500 that they've had in years.
Yep. In
terms of the TV ratings. I'm sure you were thrilled with the whole thing, especially with Team Andretti winning.
Oh, it was fantastic. It was fantastic. The only thing you could have asked for was a full podium of Andretti Global. But you got 2 out of 3, which was good. Kyle Kirkwood has really turned out to be a very, very solid driver for Andretti Global. And it'll be interesting to see how they try and market him a little bit more. I mean, you've got Palou, which is easy to market right now, but you know, Kyle Kirkwood is one of those guys that he's been second most of the year in the point standings and just kind of faded away a little bit. Nobody really thought about him, and he just dominates this race. And what a great, I mean, the layout for that track was fantastic. There were a lot of great passing zones. There was a lot of great speed zones for a street course. If they don't bring this back next year, there's something seriously wrong in IndyCar's thinking. And I don't know that it'll all be about IndyCar not wanting it. Maybe they just don't have a promoter. Maybe they can't get the streets. I don't know. But that race has to come back. You can't do a one and done on that one.
Roger Penske was saying that the mayor, Muriel Bowser, and her staff were absolutely outstanding to deal with to make this race happen. Obviously, the Trump administration pushed as well.
Sure.
I guess the only problem they had politically is that the original course called for them to go around the Capitol.
Yeah.
And I guess the non-Republican group was not enamored with that idea, so they had to work around it.
But they had it in front of the Capitol where the start-finish line was, and it looked great.
All right, well, that's why they adapted. But Muriel Bowser, who is a Democrat, they say her administration and everybody in there, indeed, they were awesome with it. And
that's why she got to say drivers to your cars.
Yeah, she deserved it.
It was a fantastic setup.
And it's great to have a visionary like Roger Penske, whom you hate.
Not as much as I used to. I like him now. You know what? I like him better now that he owns the series and has stepped away from being, hands-on with the team. I thought for years IndyCar really catered to the Penske team because of Roger's legacy and everything. I think IndyCar made some decisions that were really, well, because it's Roger, we'll let it go. And that doesn't happen. And it showed last year when he ended up firing half of his team.
You are such a fan. You are just such a fanboy.
But he fired half his team last year, so I'm like, all right, maybe he's all right. I'll start using Penske products again.
Oh, God, you're a fan.
I once drove 30 miles with the low oil light on it because all they had was Penske. All they had was Pennzoil.
You know, you do have to take care of yourself. You do know that.
Yes. I had my standards.
My standard is, does the car run? Okay.
It got me to Bloomsburg. I was fine.
Oh, brutal. A buddy of mine actually works for Penske. Says he's awesome.
I have no doubt. I just there was a time in
and not only that, where he works, they have Pennzoil.
Well, that's I would hope. I would hope. I think he's done a great job buying the series and running the series. And I think one of the best things that they did, I really questioned it for a long time, but I thought the best thing that they did was move it to Fox. Fox has done an outstanding job of promoting this series.
Yeah,
and not jumping it all over the it's not always on Fox Sports 1 or it's not on Fox Sports 2. It's on Fox. The race itself is on the network. And, they'll bump around maybe qualifying and practice, and they'll cover that. But the game or the races are on the network. And that's more than I could say NBC did when they had the opportunity.
So you want the practice on the network too?
No, I'm okay with that being on FS1, FS2.
Nobody wants to watch practice.
I'll
tell you right now, Penn State football practice, like all of it was open to the media. It was illuminating that when it was done, like they kind of like the snippets that.
How many practices did you miss?
I missed one.
Exactly. So you can't tell me you didn't that practice isn't important because you only missed one.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the other. See, I've gone for decades. All right, these guys they got 3 open ones, and they were like, do I have to be there the whole thing? And the one I'll tell you a quick story about the one I missed. It was when I did the Purdy.
I was going to say it was the Purdy tournament. Yeah.
Yep. So Matt comes up to me. I go to the practice the next day. Matt comes up to me. He says, "Hey, where were you yesterday?" And I said, "I was at a charity event for disadvantaged children." He said, "Oh, that's actually fair."
So you got a pass, is what you're saying. I got you.
I played the disadvantaged children card. I thought,
which is not an exaggeration at all.
No, it's not an exaggeration. No. But he looks at me. He paused for a moment. He goes, "It's actually fair."
It's actually fair. I like that.
Well, they gave me a hard time because I'm trying to work out travel to do the 2 basketball games in the Bahamas. The problem I've got is Wednesday's no big deal before Thanksgiving. Who cares what time that game is? That doesn't matter. It's the Friday game. What's the worst case scenario on Friday?
Well, you have to figure out a way to fly back somewhere for a Saturday game.
Right. That's why. And I talked to Mike Rhodes, and Mike told me he thinks we're playing in the earlier set. Well, if that's the case, fine.
Yeah.
Because I can get a 6:45 flight Friday night to Miami, and then Miami to Philadelphia gets in at 12:30 in the morning. Then I'll just drive the 2 hours after that. It's no big deal.
And then just plan to go a day earlier and then enjoy the Bahamas.
No, I'm just going down Tuesday. The game's Wednesday. For God's sakes, no.
You are the no fun league.
I've got work to do.
Yeah, you could do it. Listen, which would be better? Sitting in State College in the office there in the house, or would it be better to be able to sit on the beach in the Bahamas and do the same job?
I'm going in Tuesday. I'm not going to waste my time and waste the company's money with an extra night. I mean,
I'm sorry. I take advantage of that.
No, I've never done that.
I just wanted to have the Bahamas Bowl again, just so I'd have an opportunity to go to the Bahamas and call the game.
You know what? When the Eastern Michigan guys went, I talked to their play-by-play guy, who's a buddy of mine. He said they literally flew them in the night before, did the game, and flew them out right after the game.
I remember you telling me that.
The only time he saw the ocean is when they landed and took off.
That's all right. I just want the Myrtle Beach Bowl. That's the one I want to call. From Conway. Hello and welcome to Conway, home of the Chanticleers, or the Fighting Chickens, depending on how you look at it.
On the, was it a teal field?
Yes, on the teal field.
Yep, nothing like broadcasting gimmicks. All right.